The Sopranos through a red pill lens. This should be fun. But you all know what to do. Subscribe, like, comment, share, etc. And also, Radical Self-Respect the book, coming out very soon. Boom. March 12th, I'm finally doing the last edit of the audiobook, so super excited to get that out to you. But now, back to The Sopranos, and seeing The Sopranos through a red pill lens. And there's so many good red pill concepts that The Sopranos covers. The first one we're going to cover here is Tony Soprano and hypergamy, right? Because Tony Soprano, he is a great example of women choosing him and their hypergamy and always asking themselves, is this the best I can do? And we'll start with Carmela, right? Because we'll call Tony, he's a blue pill alpha. Now, the fact that he's part of the mafia does make him do some red pill things in the fact that the mafia is always number one in all the made men's lives over their women. And just like the red pill concept of the woman should never be the focus of your life but a compliment, they all live that. And they're also dominant in their relationships. Sometimes Tony will let Carmela run the household per se, but Tony's in charge of the finances. Carmela always needs to go to him for money, and she eventually steals money from him. But he's in charge. But he'll let Carmela run the household and the kids sometimes. But ultimately, his word is final. Also, Tony has his Gumars, right? And he has all these women that you normally wouldn't think that would be attracted to someone like Tony Soprano if he weren't the mob boss, right? He's overweight, balding, not necessarily that attractive, but from the Russian woman to the Mercedes car salesman to many of the strippers at the Bada Bing to the woman he steals from Ralph to the woman he sees in Las Vegas, they all want him and they're all super attracted to him because he's the alpha, he's the mob boss, and he's a bad boy who's done a lot of fucked up things. Tony's probably narcissistic and probably also antisocial personality disorder as well, and women are attracted to that. And so it's a great example of hypergamy and it being acted out in the world. And Sopranos was ahead of its time, kind of showing that kind of thing. Also, Carmela and the rest of the wives there too, they all have dread. And they've all accepted their women's or their husband's Gumars. So Sill's wife, Aunt Ro they call her, and Carmela, they've all had husbands that cheat. And it's just part of the life that they chose. And Carmela's hypergamy is always asking, is Tony the best I can do? Is Tony the best I can do? And almost the whole time, except in the 5th season when she leaves him temporarily, the answer to that is yes. She hates herself for it sometimes. She allows herself an emotional affair with Furio. But when push comes to shove, she does not cheat. Ultimately, she's afraid of what Tony would do. And really, ultimately, she's become accustomed to her lifestyle. And she doesn't want to give it up. And that's the bottom line. Now let's go back to Tony here, because here's a blue pill alpha that does some red pill things because he's dominant, right? And he has the mafia, his mob life, over all else. That's a red pill thing. But he does get a little blue pillish once in a while, like when he gets really drunk and finds out his ex-Russian girlfriend is hooking up with the assemblyman. That pisses him off and he starts to get a little teary-eyed and goes over there and whoops his ass. That was a blue-pilled kind of thing. But then he acts dominant to make up for it by whooping his ass. Then there's also how he gets kind of blue-pillish with Dr. Melfi. Tries to give her some flowers and tries to earn her validation. Tries to make it a little more transactional. And he can't understand why every other woman caves in to him and act out on their hypergamy, but not Dr. Melfi. And let's not forget that Dr. Melfi is absolutely attracted to him. She's had dreams about him. She's had some Freudian slips about him. Because despite being slightly blue-pilled, he's absolutely dominant. And he's absolutely attractive to Dr. Melfi throughout the whole thing. But morally speaking, she's able to block it. She's able to say, you know what? Tony does things that I do not approve of. And so I'm not going to hook up with him. And she's ultimately able to follow through with that. Now let's go further down the line here into other things going on in the show, let's take a look at some of the betas of the show. How about that? So the first beta that comes to mind is Artie. Artie's the guy who owns the restaurant, and he looks up to all the mobsters, but he certainly isn't one, and he's certainly not a tough guy. He acts beta simpy with his wife, Charmaine. Charmaine's wearing the pants in that relationship. She has the frame, and Artie is just in her frame. Carmela is generally speaking in Tony's frame. And also, so Charmaine, back in her high school days, she did hook up with Tony. And you could say that Charmaine might be an alpha widow of Tony Soprano. She alludes to the fact that she broke up with him, but if that's really how it went down, we don't really know. But, so, Charmaine is Tony's alpha widow, and she hates the fact that her husband is looking up to these mobsters and wishing that he was one of them and tries to emulate them and be a tough guy. She wants to be able to say to herself, I chose the right path. I chose the good guy. As opposed to Carmela, who chose the mobster. She chose Tony. And then her life went a certain direction from there, or with all the lavish lifestyle, but also the Gumars and etc. And then Charmaine chose the other guy, or maybe was forced to choose him, and you sense some regret. You sense a really resentful attitude that she has, and she even throws it in Carmela's face that, hey, I got with Tony back in the day, but it wasn't for me. But it's like she's really trying to convince herself that she made the right decision, more so than Carmela, I would think. And so when she sees her husband acting all beta-like, as opposed to Tony and the other mobsters, she gets disgusted. She wants him to be like an alpha of good dudes, but that's just not him. And so she wears the pants, she has the frame. Another beta in the show, Bobby Bacala. When his wife dies, he was what they would get is called zeroed out. He gets zeroed out when his wife dies, goes to her grave every day, cries all the time, shows a lot of emotion. And he's the only one that did not have a Gumar, Bobby Bacala. So he's also very beta, very blue-pilled in the show. AJ, Tony Soprano's son, he's also beta, also blue pill, but he reaps the benefits of his father's dominance and father status and starts getting some hot-ass women in the later seasons of the show. We also have here Christopher and Adriana's relationship, right? So Christopher is a dominant dude. Adriana is in his frame, and so even though he's an addict, even though he's abusive, Adriana stays with him. And just like Tony, he chooses the mob life over everything. And this becomes abundantly clear when he catches Adriana, or Adriana confesses that she's been talking to the feds, and rather than run off with her, he tells Tony, and then Adriana gets whacked. So he chooses his mob life over Adriana. And you can say a lot about the mobsters in the show, but they're never approval-seeking and weak, really. They're not, like, very simpy. Most of them, besides Bobby, AJ, and Artie, they're all pretty dominant in what they do, and they have their mob life number one. Right, so their purpose in life is their mob life, their whole family thing, and that takes precedence overall. Now, the dread aspect, like I said, that comes into play, because Carmela must have some dread. She hates the fact that Tony has Gumars, but she tries her best to keep him faithful, but she also knows that it won't work. But she also knows that she's unwilling, ultimately, to leave. She's stuck, because she feels like it's the best she can do. Until she meets Furio, which is like the good dude, a good guy, even though he's a mobster, which is why part of the reason why he gets so infatuated with him is because he has all the qualities that Tony doesn't seem to really have. But he's still a bad boy, right? But he's a sensitive, caring kind of bad boy, but he can be the alpha too. So, best of both worlds kind of thing. And what else? Yeah, so overall, Tony's, like, The Sopranos is a great show to represent hypergamy, dread, being bottomed out, blue-pilled alphas, betas, all sorts of things. And it's a great show. Timeless show, really. It's been almost 20 years old now, but awesome show. A lot of great lessons in the show. And that's really it. That's my analysis of The Sopranos through a red pill lens. Please let me know what you think. Did you like it, not like it, etc.? Would you like me to continue doing some red-pilled kind of content like this? Or more towards like the usual stuff that I do? Let me know. So with that, that's all I have for you. Have a good one.